Hey everyone, Ben here from MTG Dungeon. Today, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite cards ever. Yeah, ever. Dragonstorm. It's so nostalgic for me to talk about Dragonstorm. It was my first competitive deck at an F&M back in like 2006, which, dating myself here, I was a sophomore in high school. 2006. And it's actually one of the reasons why I met one of my best friends ever. Aww. So Dragonstorm is a sorcery from Scourge. Scourge came out early 2000, like 2003, 2002, something like that. It was slightly before my time in Magic. I was introduced to Magic roughly around the 8th grade. So for me, that would have been 2004 from one of my great family friends. But Dragonstorm says 8 and a red. Search your library for a card, a dragon card, put it into play, shuffle your library. This card has Storm. So let's talk a little bit about Storm. Storm is a ridiculous mechanic brought to you by Mark Rosewater. It says here, when you play this spell, copy it for each spell played before it this turn. It's a pretty unlikely example, but an example of how this would work is, let's say you have 7 lands in play, and then you play Mox Ruby, Mox Sapphire, Dragonstorm. Dragonstorm will be on the stack. You'll get the copy of Dragonstorm, and then you'll get a subsequent copy for those Moxes you played earlier that turn. So the Mox Ruby will give you a copy, and the Mox Sapphire will give you a copy. At that point, you'll have 3 copies of Dragonstorm on the stack, and if they all resolve, which I'm sure most of them will anyway, you'll get to go search for some dragons and put them into play. Like I mentioned, Scourge, it's a dragon-themed set. It came out in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, it didn't really provide a lot of dragons to go get, and there really wasn't an easy way to cheat Dragonstorm into play at that time. It was more effective to do like reanimator strategies, and this is an excellent dragon for that. Bladewing the Risen. When it enters the battlefield, you may return a dragon card from your graveyard to play. So you use a card like Entomb or Buried Alive to go put dragons into your graveyard, and then you reanimate it with a spell like Reanimator or Animate Dead. You get Bladewing. Bladewing triggers, you get another dragon. The second dragon, Dragon Mage. When Dragon Mage deals combat damage to a player, each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. Pretty powerful effect. Note, this card has been downgraded to an uncommon. Dragon Tyrant, a 6/6 flying trampler with double strike, costing 10 mana, has fire breathing and a ridiculous upkeep cost. 4 mana or sack it. Whatever. Eternal Dragon, the 4th and final dragon available in the Scourge set from the Onslaught block in the early 2000s. 5/5 for 7 mana. Flying, 3 and 2 white, return Eternal Dragon from your graveyard to your hand. Play this ability only during your upkeep. And then at least it has a way to put it in the bin. Plane cycling. Thanks. Now, this is more along what you would see in Scourge for being a dragon-themed set. Instead of more dragons, you'll get things like Dragon Speaker Shaman. A 2/2 dragon spells cost 2 less to cast for 1 and 2 red. Well, that's enough about Scourge. It was a very unimpressive set. Here's a version of Dragonstorm from the vault. We have Modern Masters, and this one, Time Shifted. That's the one that I was introduced to. Let's talk a little bit about Dragonstorm as a card, because there are multiple types of Magic players out there. There's an article in the Wizards archives on the Wizards website that goes over this pretty well. Timmy's, Johnny's, Spike. I would argue that this card is very appealing to all of them. Let's talk about what those are. So we have the Spike. They only care about winning.
You are a fool! I am going to crush you and throw you into the wind!
They only care about the end result. It doesn't matter how it gets there. Frankly, they could play it on index cards. They don't need flavor to play Magic. They don't need these colors to represent the color pie. They'd be fine with, like I mentioned, index cards, no color, just text. Timmy's, they're more about the journey. They're more curious about how do they accomplish this? How can I do this in the most interesting fashion possible? And I feel like Storm gives people the creative space to figure out how to make the most out of Storm.
This time, you used your own daughter and her dog to transmute a talking chimera! You can only do so much with animals, after all. It's much easier when you start with a human, isn't that right?
I don't see what you're so upset about. This is how we progress.
Also, Storm just inherently cheats the mana. It's just inherently a part of the ability. Thank you, Mark Rosewater. And now, the last person is a Johnny. Johnny loves big, fat, stupid creatures. They want to put them into play, they want to turn them sideways, and want to kill your opponent with big, fatty, tramply, awesome titans, or in this case, dragons.
Now I create a dual monster without peer, with attack force so great that no monster can stand against him. I create the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon.
As somebody once described dragons, goblins that without wings. That was me. I was being stupid. All right. Well, I would argue that this card appeals to all three of those types of people. Now, like I said, I played this as my first competitive F&M deck. And it wasn't until these lands came into play, or it came to existence from the Lorwyn block, the Hideaway Lands, that I really took off with the strategy. Spinerock Knoll has the Hideaway effect. The Hideaway effect is enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them, and then you can play it later for its Hideaway cost that's on the land. As it says here, for the Spinerock Knoll, you pay a red, tap it. You may play the removed card without paying its mana cost if, and only if, an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn. So as far as casting Dragonstorm, you could try to pull this off, but generally what you would do is you'd use mana. You would use cards like Fungal Reaches and Molten Slag Heap, the storage lands, with their storage ability of pay 1, tap, put a storage counter on this storage land. This one is Molten Slag Heap. And then you can use its last ability to pay a mana, remove X storage counters from it, add X mana, and any combination of, in this case, red or black. The other one was red and green. The next card, Lotus Bloom, play on Black Lotus. So suspend 3 for 0 mana. So it costs 0 mana to put this card in exile for 3 turns, with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, you can remove a time counter from Lotus Bloom. When you remove the last one, cast it for free. Cast it without paying its mana cost. So hopefully what you would do is play multiples on the same turn by suspending them. And then eventually, 3 turns later, you'll get to cast them for free, adding to your storm count. This was another way to do it. Rite of Flames. There's another way to do it. Seething Songs. There was only a short period of time before the Lorwyn block was released where Seething Song in 9th edition and the previous card, Rite of Flames from Cold Snap, were legal at the same time. Incinerates, Shocks, activate Spinerock Knoll. Hopefully, that's how you're accomplishing Spinerock Knoll at the time. This dragon is really what put Dragonstorm on the map. Bogardan Hellkite. It's a 5/5, enters the battlefield, deals 5 damage divided as you choose among any creatures and or players. It has flash, it has flying, it costs 8 mana. It's awesome. It's a big, bad, awesome sauce dragon Johnny happy face guy. Or as some people might look at it, it's just an overcosted ambush viper. All these cards mentioned, as I said, it was one of my first competitive FNM decks. And it's actually the reason why I met one of my best friends. I went to FNM one day, and this guy sat across from me the first round, was playing this budget mono green stompy deck. And I went off on like turn 4, and he just sat there in amazement like. And then he asked for my phone number, and he asked if I could send him the deck list, and then we just became friends from there. It was awesome. Really cool. So it's really nostalgic for me. I'll always love this card. I'll cherish it. Bogardan Hellkites. Now, eventually they came out with more dragons to play with, such as Karthus, Tyrant of Jund. Now, when this card came out, Dragonstorm did rotate out of Standard, but you were still able to play it in the Eternal formats, such as Extended, Modern, Legacy, Vintage if you wanted to. But this card made it so you didn't have to get 4 Bogardan Hellkites in the game, because it says it gives all the other dragons haste. So you could grab this and 2 Bogardan Hellkites and 27 your opponent. And then here's another iteration they came out with even later. It took them about another 6 years, but they did it. Dragon Lord Kolaghan. Other creatures you control have flying haste. Pretty straightforward. So now you can run multiple hasty dragons if you want. Well, anyway, that's about all I have to say for Dragonstorm right now. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking us out. If you have had any experiences with Dragonstorm, positive or negative, let us know in the comments below. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, like and subscribe. Share us on social media. And as always, my friends, happy magicking.